Okay, thanks, Latrice. Hi,
Absolutely.
everyone. Good morning. I'm on the West Coast, so good morning from the West Coast. If you're not, good afternoon. And happy holidays. I can't believe it's the holidays. I don't know where the time went. So I will get started really quickly, and I'll spend a little bit more time on the intro to allow more people to come in. But hello, everyone. Welcome to my session. What do you want from a podcast network? Really excited to share this information with you. I hope to answer some questions that you have. But most of all, this presentation will be very interactive. So I really want to hear from you. I really want to hear, what do you want? What would be of value to you? And how can a network like the HubSpot Podcast Network better support Black podcasters? So that's my very genuine intention here, but hopefully I can answer some questions for you along the way. There will be plenty of polls. So on the Whova app, there's a poll tab. I will be referring to polls during this presentation. So you can go there to answer all of the poll questions. All right, so let's get started. There we go. So hello, my name is Alanah Joseph. I am a senior marketing manager at HubSpot, and I manage the HubSpot Podcast Network. So I am the lead for the network and run all marketing and operations. I'm very excited to be here with you. I hope to answer any questions that you have about what it means to join a podcast network. But if I don't get to your question, which I hope that I will, but if I don't, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can answer your questions there. So before we get started, once again, I'm going to start off with a poll because this session is actually very much about you. So I would love to know, before we get started, what is the biggest challenge or largest point of friction that you find as a podcaster? And so if you could answer that poll for me. A would be production. So is it, a high quality mic? Is it an editor? Is that difficult for you? Is it building a production workflow so that you are publishing on a regular cadence? Is it building an audience, monetizing your content, or other? If it's other, go ahead and put what your biggest challenge is into the comment section or Q&A comment section, something like that, in the chat. There we go. Cool. All right, so let's start off with the very basics here and talk about what is a podcast network. So a podcast network is a collection of podcasts that essentially live under one brand. So those podcasts work collaboratively to build and grow together. And typically by joining a podcast network, you are allowing the network to be responsible for your ad inventory. So if one of your largest challenges is monetizing your content, then a typical network would actually manage all of that for you. We at the HubSpot Podcast Network, we don't do that, but that is typical of joining a network. So here are some networks, some very popular networks that we all know, hopefully, or if you don't, you can check them out. We have Black Effect, which is one of my favorites. Of course, the HubSpot Podcast Network couldn't leave us out. NPR, Spotify. And so these are, you can tell if a podcast is part of this network most often because when you see their cover art, you will see that there is some sort of branding on their cover art, whether that's the iHeartRadio logo or the HubSpot Podcast Network cover art tag. So that's kind of how you know which shows are in which networks. So what are the benefits of joining it? Why would you want to even be in a network? Let's talk about that. So I would like to first give you a disclaimer that I work for the HubSpot Podcast Network, and all networks are going to be very different in their approach and in their benefits and packages and contracts. So I highly recommend that you do the research and have that you do the research and that you have a few informational conversations with the leads of the network to better understand what the benefits are for that specific network. But just overall, here are a list of some things that people may present to you. So 1, brand association. This is a large one for a lot of our network shows. When they come into the network, some of the feedback that they've received is now that they are associated with HubSpot, they get more requests for guests. So more people want to be on their show, and they get better requests. So, they maybe are able to access people that they weren't typically, or that they weren't able to access before. And a lot of that comes from that brand recognition with the network itself. Additional ad revenue. So of course, this is going to help you monetize your content. Production support. So that could be giving you funding to start a podcast, or that could be just monthly ad revenue. That could be staffing, a bunch of things. Marketing support. So typically when you join a network, the network is invested in your podcast. So they're invested in the success of your podcast. So you're going to have marketers like myself that will be assigned to your show and will really work with you to help your show grow. So essentially you will start getting consults for marketing. And that can include promotions and advertising, cross promotion with network shows. This is a big one. If you're joining a network with some major heavy hitter shows, having an ad within those shows or being a guest on those shows can be really beneficial for your brand awareness for your podcast. Knowledge sharing. So you're joining a community with other podcasters. And so that's great because 2 heads are better than 1, right? So we have 14 shows. So we have 14 podcasts all working together. And the knowledge there is that they're able to share is incredible. An example of that would be, we have an advertisement database. So anytime a show runs an ad campaign for their show, we then allow all hosts to access that reporting. So if you wanted to do Facebook ads and you wanted to know what another show in the network did on Facebook and what the conversion rate was, or data like that, you would have access to that. So that can be incredibly powerful to make sure that you're making informed decisions with ad buying. Publicity and earned media. So when you join a network, most likely you'll have more earned media, more people talking about your show, more people wanting to know more about your show, and that's always incredible. And also access to events. So I would say that this is kind of twofold, right? That you'll also most likely have more speaking engagements, more opportunities to get the word out there about your show through network opportunities. Okay, so I'm curious, and I would love to know, of the list that I just presented to you, which of these things do you actually feel is going to be most valuable for your podcast? Which one is going to move the needle for you and actually allow you to find some success? Because essentially a network is supposed to provide you with the support that you need, and having a large brand be invested in the success of your show is going to help you. But essentially, I would love to know, which of these things do you think would help you the most? So if you could please answer that poll now, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll kind of give you some results here. So far, we have 9 responses to the poll. If you all go to the poll tab inside of Hoover, you should have Q&A, polls, chat, and community. You can find this poll. It's the first poll. We have 9 responses so far. It looks like marketing support and audience growth has about 67% of responses. And let's see. Oh, y'all voting. Okay, things
Yes, I
changing
love
up a little bit. Things
that.
changing up a little. So we still have marketing support and audience growth is top. And then we have podcast promotions and advertising is second. And then brand association is third.
Yeah, all of those are going to really be helpful. I know I am a digital marketer, specifically a content strategist, and I work for HubSpot. And so being able to work with shows is very exciting for me. And having one-on-ones with them and talking about how we can grow their show is always very fun for me. So glad to hear that. I see also in the chat that Tiara says cross promotion with network shows. That's major. That's major. And that's, of course, going to depend on the network that you join. I will say too that, for example, the HubSpot Podcast Network, we only have business focused shows. So marketing, sales, customer success, entrepreneurship, leadership, those type of shows. So it's very easy for us to cross promote within those shows. So before you join a network, if cross promotion is of value to you, definitely take a look and evaluate the other shows that are in the network, because you want to ensure that there's some overlap between your target audiences to get the most from that cross promotion. Oh, wrong direction. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about my expertise, which is the HubSpot Podcast Network. I don't really know what other people do, so I'm just giving you a basic idea, but I can go into more detail here. And if you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer. So HubSpot is a CRM platform. We're a tech company. Why do we have a podcast network? Well, HubSpot really started its business around this idea of inbound marketing, that you get new audiences and new customers by truly being of value to people. And by creating content that people find valuable, they will find you. And so as HubSpot has grown over the years and scaled our product, we also want to scale our content offerings, and we wanted to scale our audio offerings specifically. And we thought we have two options. We can either put a bunch of money into creating new shows, or we can work and collaborate with some of the incredible content creators that are already out there. So folks like you. And so we created the HubSpot Podcast Network to really bring in business creators that want to educate and inspire their audience, because we're all about that. So there's a lot of alignment there. So here are some things that we provide to our shows and the benefits specifically of joining our network. So one is going to be ad revenue. So we pay our creators based on their audience size. And we'll go a little bit more into this further into the presentation. Cross promotion with other network shows, speaking opportunities. So an example of that is Inbound. That happened a few weeks ago where it was an incredible conference where Oprah was the headliner. And so I hope that some of you checked that out. But during that conference, the network partnered with Inbound. And so we presented actually podcast content and then invited our host to either be panelists or lead a session, et cetera. And so that's a great opportunity, and hopefully a lot of people got a lot of exposure out of that. Community knowledge sharing. So I gave you that example of the way that we share our ad reporting so that we can all make informed ad buys. HubSpot promotion. So we have established channels. So this could either look like a social collaboration or having a host be a guest blogger and embedding their content within that blog. That's going to be really helpful. And also really, if the host has a website, most of our hosts have websites where they have their episodes and their transcripts. If you're able to get on more blogs, that is very helpful to build SEO for those pages through backlinking strategies. So these are all things that we are implementing for our podcast shows. And then the match program. So we actually provide additional ad funds to our host to advertise. So if a host comes to me and says, hey, I want to run an Instagram campaign, I'm going to put in, I'm going to buy $500 worth of ads. I will send them an additional $500. So now they have a $1,000 ad campaign. So these are just some of the things that we are developing and providing to our host that seem to be pretty beneficial. Okay, so this is an open question, but there is a poll that says, what do you want from a podcast network? So I just shared with you some of the benefits and programming that we have for our hosts, but I would love to know, like, which of those are beneficial and what would you like to see that maybe wasn't listed? I am always developing programming and strategies to help our hosts and support our creators. And so if you have any ideas or there's something that you want, definitely put it in this poll so that I can use that to build that out. Give you a minute there.
So if you go to your polls list, it is the third question in your polls list. And some of the results that you've gotten already, Alanah, opportunities, community, sharing ideas, and monetization. And opportunities is on there twice. So definitely opportunities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's one of the major pluses of joining a large brand is that the brand is, for example, we're a sponsor for Afros and Audio. And that's incredible because we actually had one of our hosts presented, Troy Sandage. I hope that you checked out his presentation. He's so great. I love having him in the network. He's such a pleasure to work with. So definitely check that out. But as we sponsor more events like Podcast Movement, where I met the Afros and Audio team, those type of things, we always invite our hosts. So those are some of the opportunities, as well as opportunities for cross promotion. There's all kinds of opportunities that naturally occur when you join a network. Okay, so we talked about what the benefits are, but of course, this is a mutually beneficial relationship. Sorry, still in morning. And so, yes, you can have all these opportunities, but it comes at some sort of a cost. And I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, what is the cost? What are podcast networks going to ask from me and my podcast team? And am I willing to do that? So what does a network want from you? Very easy answer, your ad inventory. Number one, a network wants your ad inventory. They either want your ad inventory to sell to other brands. So you join the network and then kind of release the responsibility of having to monetize your content. So it's the network's responsibility to go out and bring back, Tide or Best Buy or whatever ads that, whatever brands, vendors that they can find. So, or from the case of the HubSpot Podcast Network, we are the advertiser, but we want your ad inventory so that we can put our ads, the HubSpot ads, into your show. So your ad inventory is number one, which means that you have to be publishing regularly. So if you're going to sign a contract about, where the network wants your ad inventory, you are now, before where you're like, okay, I'm going to, publish weekly because, it's going to build up my audience, et cetera. Now you have to publish weekly. So that's something to keep in mind. And or your content, which brings me to my next question. Do you want to own your podcast? So some networks are going to essentially acquire you, which means that you no longer own the podcast. But that could be great for someone who actually owns a business and the podcast is used to drive sales for their business and they are focused on their business and the podcast is a secondary driver of sales or traffic or a marketing ploy. That could be really good for that person. If you wake up in the morning and you're like, I am a full-time podcaster, this is my baby, this is something that I love and I will never let go of, then you will probably not want to be acquired. And there are other contracts and other networks out there for you. So we personally, we have 14 shows. We do not own any of our shows. We're actually an advertiser and we're buying a bulk supply of your ads. Okay, I'm gonna go through this a little quickly because I want to make sure that I leave time for Q&A. So here are some things that we're asking from hosts. One, you have to publish consistently. So that means that you either weekly or bi-weekly, whatever the cadence is that you have agreed to with your network. That's kind of what you have to do moving forward. We require a 30-second pre-roll to promote the network or other shows. So this is our cross-promotion strategy. So during this 30-second pre-roll, you would say something essentially to the lines of, this show is brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network with other shows like I Digress. I listen to I Digress. I really like it. Troy is great. I find it valuable. You should too. Something along those lines, but better than that, clearly. And then a 60-second mid-roll. This is where you would actually be talking about HubSpot, the CRM platform. We also require one-on-one monthly meetings. This is where we present opportunities and work through marketing things together. So very important. And then of course, we require monthly reporting. So I want to, for a second, we've been talking about from the mind of a podcaster, why you should or should not join a network. For a second, I want to get you into the mind of an advertiser and how I think and how I value or assess content in podcasts, et cetera. So what is the value of an ad in podcast content? Here are some things I think about. One is the audience size. So here's some questions that I'm answering. How many downloads per month? How many downloads per episode? These two questions are different. I'll tell you why. We all know that if you have been doing this for a while, that you have a back catalog. And so how many downloads per month are going to tell me how many people are listening to your show overall. And that includes your back catalog. How many downloads per episode is going to tell me how many people are tuning in to one specific episode. And essentially, this is going to tell me how many people can I count on will listen to my ad. And then what is your current rate of growth? So if you were at 5,000 last month and now you're at 20,000, that's really great. And that is definitely a big plus. Another one is impact. So how large is your podcast social community? We are a business network. And so LinkedIn following or engagement on LinkedIn, those are going to be things that I am definitely looking into and want to know more about. What is your target audience? So who are you speaking to? And are the people that you're speaking to speaking back at you? Meaning, are people engaging with your content in a very meaningful way? Is your content eliciting some sort of emotional response from your listeners where they are not only listeners, but now converting into longtime subscribers and they're going to tune into your show week after week? These two things are how we're going to look at how much we're going to pay you. So definitely keep that in mind. Even if you have a smaller audience, but you have a big impact, that's still very much a win. If you have a large impact and your audience is kind of small, but your rate of growth is high, that's going to be wonderful. And that's great news for me, because when you do join a brand, we have more levers to pull marketing wise to really grow your show. Okay. So we have like 5 minutes left. I would love to answer any questions that you have. I have the chat open. So if anyone has any questions that you'd like me to answer as someone that leads a podcast network, definitely now is the time. So
yeah, so we have 3 questions for you. Yeah, we have 3 questions in the Hoover chat. In the Hoover Q&A. The first one is from Laurel Rutledge. Laurel says, I use a different CRM for my solopreneur business. Could I still potentially join the HubSpot Podcast Network and maybe And it may be a stupid question. There are no such thing as stupid questions,
No such
Laurel.
thing.
But my podcast is listed or available on multiple platforms, but I don't know that I'm a part of an active network. Can you clarify? Happy to take offline if needed.
Okay, yeah, I can clarify there. So one, there's a difference between your listening platforms. So like Spotify, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, those are listening platforms. We're talking about networks, which is essentially a brand that you're a part of. So that could be iHeart, NPR, HubSpot Podcast Network, et cetera. So those two things are different. For specifically HubSpot, if you use another CRM platform, that is fine, but like you're missing out. But if you do, that's fine as long as you're not advertising that CRM platform. So we do allow our shows. So we essentially will buy 2 years worth of your ad content, it could be 6 months between 2 years, where we buy like bulk of your advertising, but you are welcome to sell advertising to other places or to other companies, as long as our ads come first, and as long as you don't do ads with our competitors. So it's fine if you have another CRM platform, as long as you're not advertising them.
Awesome. All right. The next question is from Margot. Margot says, how does a network capture the analytics like downloads for each show? I know of a network that actually sent monthly recaps of each show's listeners and streams. Are those numbers valid?
So that will all depend on the operations of the specific network. So once again, all networks function a little differently. But for our network, our hosts submit their reporting. So all of our hosts are on different platforms. So they could be on Libsyn or Megaphone, et cetera. So there's no like centralized location. So what we ask is that they fill out a form every month and they send us a screenshot of their monthly downloads. And then also some people have YouTubes or some people publish other places. So we also take that into account. So our hosts report to us, and then we combine all of that data for reporting for the network.
Awesome. And then the last question, also from Margot, podcast networks, the analytics, they represent the network. Okay, let's see. Podcast networks, the analytics, they represent the network and not the individual shows, right? So I think she's asking, is the network representing the network, or is the network representing the show itself?
So there's 2 levels of data. We are looking at the analytics of each specific show. The reason being is that we're looking at the growth trajectory for each show and figuring out how to meet goals for that show. So if the goal is to reach 50K by the end of the year, we want to track that. And so we are going to look specifically at the analytics that the host is pulling from their hosting platform. Then on top of that, we are looking at the growth of the network overall. So we launched in May and we've had incredible growth since then. And so we're definitely combining all of this. We have 14 shows. All 14 shows submit their data and their analytics. We then use that to not only look specifically at the marketing strategies for each show, but we also use that to think about how we can push the network overall, how we can grow the network overall. So hopefully that makes sense. So we have some aggregated data, and then we have data that is show specific, and we use both of those.
Awesome. That's all the questions that we have so far, Alanah. We have 1 more minute left. So if you want to just let everybody know how they can reach you and how they can support whatever it is that you got going on.
Sure. So a couple of things. One, there's one final poll that I would love for you to answer, which is, how can the podcast industry better support Black podcasters? I'm very interested in that. I would love our network to be the ultimate destination for all podcasters, and especially those that are Black. So definitely let me know how we can better support you as a Black podcaster. If you are interested in joining the network, please go to HubSpot.com/podcast network. That link is also on our sponsorship page. We have a booth. You are welcome to go to our virtual booth to click the link there. And if you have a business show, specifically marketing or sales, leadership, entrepreneurship, anything along those lines, but definitely business centered. So for example, not necessarily a lifestyle show that sometimes touches on business, but if your show is all about business, then definitely apply to be a part of the network. And you can do that at HubSpot.com/podcast network. Scroll to the bottom, you'll see a CTA there that says apply to join. So fill out that form, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of your applications, hopefully, and bringing you into the fold. And also hello to Troy, our HubSpot Podcast Network host that is joining this session today. So thanks for your support, Troy, and thanks everyone.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, you got a little cheering section in the comments there, Troy. Troy is definitely about that HubSpot life. Okay.
I love that.
We appreciate Troy. Troy presented yesterday, right, Troy? And it was amazing.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yes, Troy did a great job. Y'all have some really great talent at HubSpot. And I just want to say thank you personally, Alanah, because we were in that room and something told me to go talk to you. I was like, there's a Black woman. I'm going to go talk to her.
Yes.
And I'm really glad that I did, because this has turned into a beautiful relationship between Afros and Audio and HubSpot, and we're just getting started. We're looking to do a lot more things. So thank you so much, Alanah. Y'all make sure you reach out to Alanah if you're looking for a podcast network or you just want to get some information you're not quite sure. Alanah is a wealth of knowledge, and she's just a really beautiful person inside and out. And so we appreciate her deeply. All right, so y'all have about 30 minutes or so until the next session begins. So, get you something to eat, refresh yourself, or you can hop on over to the audio drama screenings where we are premiering 3 brand new up-and-coming audio drama scripted series. It's a beautiful thing. Y'all know that audio drama is Talib's, passion. And so we have the audio drama screenings are going to be happening until 12:55. And then the next set of breakout sessions are taking place at 1:00. So we'll see you all in a few. Have a great one.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.